Welcome, everyone. I'm here today with Eric Stazak. He's the Executive Vice President of Community Management here at Westward 360, and today we're going to be talking about budgeting. Eric, from your extensive experience, what are the biggest budgeting mistakes that HOAs and condominium associations commonly make?
Yeah, thanks, Mike, and really happy to be here. It's a vital discussion, as these mistakes can often have long-term consequences. One of the most common things that we see, and frankly, one of the most critical, is underfunding reserves accounts. Many associations fail to allocate enough money for major capital repairs, replacements like roofs, elevator modernizations, paving, HVAC upgrades over time, some of which are typically needed anywhere from those first 1 to 2 years and as far out as 30 days. So planning early and often and projecting those things out is really critical for building a long-term and fruitful budget.
Great. And what can be some of the consequences of that underfunding?
Yeah, I mean, the fallout can be really significant. It often leads to things like deferred maintenance, emergency special assessments, which are never fun, and ultimately declining property values at the end of the day. At Westward 360, we try to always emphasize the best practice here. So conducting a reserve study, for instance, every 3 to 5 years, and getting those updates with that provider that was originally used, diligently following the funding recommendations and the maintenance programs that reserve study calls out, which is really critical. And then really ultimately, it's not just a suggestion. It's often mandated by certain states within the country and required by certain governing documents as well at times. So we really treat reserve studies as living documents. We'll update them frequently after some of those major repairs are done, so it reflects all of the activity that's going on within the community.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. So what else trips up associations when they're planning their finances?
Yeah, another common pitfall that we often see is just overly optimistic income projections. So boards will sometimes assume a 100% collection rate on their assessments or special assessments or other sort of pass-throughs, ignoring the reality of delinquencies, whether it's from a hardship case or just people following behind because of economic conditions, whatever the source is. So this distorts the expected income and creates shortfalls that maybe were unanticipated. So here at the company, we try to advise our clients to build in that 5 to 10% buffer planning for possible delinquencies. Great if they don't happen, but nice to have this little buffer in case they do. And then we try to base that on historical trends. If that community has seen certain collections issues over time, and we can predict or project some of those. And then we'll use a lot of our extensive data to help leverage those associations just to make those more realistic projections as well.
So it sounds like being realistic is key when it comes to income. So what about expenses? Do associations underestimate those as well?
Absolutely, unfortunately. Many associations make the mistake of ignoring things like inflation or market trends that we see in certain industries. Insurance is a hot button one these days. So failing to adjust for those rising costs, especially in areas like I mentioned, insurance, utilities, where we often see planned spikes in rates or delivery charges, labor rates increasing, things like economic conditions due to tariffs. So inevitably, those things can result in budget shortfalls if you're not really attuned to what's happening around you. So the Westward 360 team, we tend to recommend that associations regularly review things like CPI, which is Consumer Price Index trends, and then obtain just recent and updated vendor quotes just to keep that pricing current and honest. We'll also strongly encourage including a contingency line item, typically 2 to 5% of the total operating budget expenses, to help account for some of those unforeseen increases or emergencies or unplanned reactive repairs as well.
That contingency line item sounds smart. What about maintenance itself? Is there a common mistake there?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a significant issue that communities often run into with just neglecting preventative maintenance. Many HOAs, condo associations, planned developments, they'll often only budget for reactive repairs in the worst case scenarios, which paradoxically ends up often leading to higher costs because infrastructure is neglected and certain things aren't maintained. So the best practice that we push here at the organization is to allocate dedicated funds for annual routine inspections and preventative maintenance. So periodic HVAC, seasonal clean-in checks, making sure your catch basins are pumped and cleaned, jetting of drainage lines, roof maintenance, gutter inspections. All of those things are just end up really resulting in more cost-effective planning in the long run, even if some of those things are new to your budget.
So that proactive approach seems to be a running theme here. What about the human element, like communication with the owners?
Yeah, I mean, communication, bar none, is just critical. And it's a huge mistake to just operate with a lack of transparency and just failing owner communication. So, especially when budget season comes around, springing a new budget on homeowners, especially one with an assessment increase, sometimes sizable, sometimes just in line with inflation year over year. Doing that without clear communication almost always leads to resistance or mistrust from your ownership constituency. So at Westwood 360, we really try to guide our boards to hold open budget workshops, explain the context behind some of those cost increases in clear terms, circulate that draft early and often in the process, and explain those assumptions in plain language. And this ultimately just results in building short-term and long-term community trust.
It sounds to me like professionalism is key, too. Do boards sometimes try to handle everything themselves without expert help?
That is definitely another common mistake, just that failure to consult experts when needed. So many boards, they're made up of homeowner volunteers who might not have all of the financial experience or expertise that folks like us in the industry or accounting resources or reserve specialists often have. So attempting to handle especially really complex budgets with a lot of line items without professional input, it can really just lead to serious errors, omissions, and things of that nature. So we at Westwood 360 will often bring in, especially for those complicated budgets, CPAs that can help opine and work through certain sections of the draft, leveraging reserve specialists when possible, and our own experienced management team and leadership to help provide guidance. It's really crucial, and I can't emphasize it enough, to work with professionals in your budgeting process.
That makes sense. So we've covered a lot, but is there anything else that's frequently overlooked during the budgeting process?
Yeah, a couple of them actually. One of them we haven't touched on, and one I'll just hammer home again after this one. But two critical points. One of them, inadequate insurance coverage. So trying to save money by underinsuring property or skipping liability coverage or other sort of policies, whether that's directors and officers, often noted as D&O, or fidelity coverages, that can often expose the association and the board, more importantly, to significant financial and legal risks. So we always recommend reviewing insurance policies annually with a licensed broker and ensuring that we've got full replacement coverage in place where it's required. We often want to invite insurance agents and brokers to board meetings, to some of the educational sessions that we do, to really help keep boards and owners informed about rates and coverages. The market has been extremely tough over the last 3 to 5 years in the insurance industry, so making sure we're looking at those things, not balking at some of those increases that, while they seem really sizable and unfortunate at times, there's often not a really great path around some of those. So understanding what those coverages are, making sure that you're not just trying to save a penny by eliminating that's something that's really crucial or really important, is definitely something to avoid. And then the other one that I want to just hammer home one more time is just that no contingency planning, making sure that that's in place for any unexpected events, things like storm damage, legal costs, which can ramp up quickly, or just economic shifts that just can completely derail a budget. And if there's really that cushion that you're budgeting for, it can help avoid a lot of those unplanned sort of unfortunate events. So a best practice that we'll often employ here at the company is just including that contingency fund and just make sure that we're reviewing any of those potential risks on an annual basis.
That makes a lot of sense. So once the budget is done, it's not just about getting it set, but also you have to manage it over time, correct?
Yeah, that's exactly right. So I think a major mistake that people will often make is just treating that budget document as static rather than dynamic. Some boards just kind of set it and forget it, really just failing to adjust when circumstances change. So here at the company, we really encourage boards to monitor their financials on a monthly basis. Our management software, Vantica, opens up the books really easily to boards to be able to stay informed, see reporting in real time, being able to stay really just in touch on any of the financial activity that's going on at the community. So comparing your actuals to the budget on a monthly basis, reviewing those forecasts mid-year if needed, all of which can really help make that budgeting process better over time as well. And then finally, timing is a huge aspect of the budget adoption process for community associations. So making sure that boards and management are just falling in line with any sort of timelines that are based on your governing documents or anything that's that's in your state laws governing the timing of which that those budgets need to be presented. So often folks can fall behind in that process or even just get started a lot later than ideally they should be. So here at the company, we start early. Ideally, we're starting those initial drafts sometime in July and early August to get a real jump on things. And that'll give ample time for just different iterations, different scenarios, adjustments to certain budget line items to kind of just see things how they're shaking out as the year progresses. And then most importantly, scheduling those meetings with proper notice, as I had mentioned. So often there's 25 to 30 day stipulations for review periods that owners need to see before that budget can be fully discussed and voted upon and adopted by the board. So making sure you're following those in accordance with your governing documents is really crucial to making sure that a good budget is being adopted through the right means and the right processes. So our goal is to really make sure that we wrap up that process before the holiday season so everyone can have a nice peaceful end of the year and a calm sort of December and January, and then hit the ground running as we hit late winter, early spring next year.
That sounds good. Peaceful and organized sounds like the way to end a year. So wow, Eric, that was incredibly comprehensive. It sounds like these budgeting mistakes often stem from things like unrealistic assumptions, maybe a lack of expertise, poor communication, inadequate planning. So a proactive, transparent, and data-driven approach, like we employ here at Westward 360, seems to be a key. Well, Eric, I want to thank you again for joining us here. All that information is incredibly helpful. Everyone out there, thanks for joining us. We will catch you at the next board meeting, hopefully one without pitchforks. Until next time, yours in community. Thanks for watching.
Thanks, Mike.